Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining from. Welcome to the Ciena Solutions Challenge webinar, our last webinar of this series, where we'll be discussing how to celebrate and reflect on your challenge design. My name is Carissa Bowen, and I'm joined by my colleague and learning experience designer, Jess Alanis. During this webinar, all attendees are muted, so please be sure to share your questions and comments in the chat box. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the webinar page of cienachallenge.org, which is our website. We'll also be sharing this recording in our bi-weekly newsletter, and as well, it will also be emailed to you directly once we get the recording. During this webinar, you are welcome to turn on any closed captions in the meeting controls toolbar on your screen. So you can click the show captions icon if needed. We'd love to know who's in the webinar or who's in our virtual space, so feel free to share who you are and what city or country you are joining from. So a little bit about our outcomes today and what we hope you all will sort of learn out of this webinar. You will be able to receive some guidance on how to submit a compelling project to the Sustainability Award, understand how to submit a Sustainability Award application in the submission portal, and you'll be able to receive some best practices for celebrating your students at the end of their challenges. And if this is your first time hearing about the Ciena Solutions Challenge, welcome. The Ciena Solutions Challenge is a global design challenge that invites middle and high school educators and students to engage in a challenge that is meaningful to them. Student teams can engage in the challenge-based learning framework to design a solution towards their challenges that addresses the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So as teams explore a big idea, maybe some of your students have already started to talk about or engage in a issue or sort of a challenge that's happening in their local communities. This challenge invites them to ask thoughtful questions, investigate their challenges, and act to create a solution. Challenge teams can design anything that inspires them. So this can include anything from a product or a device, a campaign or a piece of media, a physical space or environment, or something else that leverages digital tools and technologies. All submitted projects will be considered for inclusion in the Ciena Solutions Challenge online gallery, showcasing media products created by students as part of their action concepts. We encourage all educators and students to consider applying for a 2,500 USD Sustainability Award, which will be awarded to the affiliate educational organization to sustain and scale their challenge activities. If you know that you'll be submitting a project to be considered for an award, we would love to see what your students produce. Ciena volunteers from all over the world will be reviewing student project submissions and sharing thoughtful and meaningful feedback to all projects that are submitted. And so today we'll be talking a little bit about what it means to submit a compelling project and getting you and your students prepared to submit a Sustainability Award application. So just to give you a little bit of context on what we saw last year in the first round of the Ciena Solutions Challenge. In 2022, we received 58 project submissions from students all over the world. Those submissions came from 31 educators at 27 educational institutions and involved over 2,000 students. In total, we received 20 applications for sustainability awards, and we were able to award 17 teams from 9 different countries. And so we saw tons of different ideas and innovations that came from everywhere, from a student designed water irrigation system in Botswana to an app developed by students in Pennsylvania that wanted to target food waste through smarter shopping and eating. These projects represent the creativity and innovation of young people from all around the world. And so I just wanted to share just some context and a little bit of guidance to help you kind of think about how you can help your students prepare to submit a compelling project. So what does a compelling project include? A compelling project is student-driven. So students are, creating reflective and collaborative videos, again, driven by students, where we can learn the journey of the project from beginning to where students are now. The project demonstrates creative use of technology, not to be confused with the fanciest nor the most expensive piece of technology. We're just looking for students to be really creative and using technology that is accessible to them. So this could mean, pretty much anything in regards to technology and how students are sort of using it in a really creative and innovative way. A compelling project also shares how the team will benefit from the award. And so you can kind of share with your students or ask them if they haven't already been thinking about it, how will the team benefit from this type of award? How will this award sort of help to scale and sustain and really maintain the life of the project or the product that they're hoping to create? A compelling project exhibits existing resources that the team will use to sustain the project for continued impact. So this could mean key people and community support if those resources are available. We'd love to be able to see some of that demonstrated in the application. Creative use of existing tools and equipment. So maybe your school or your organization already has equipment that you're already using. We'd love to be able to know in detail what this looks like and how it can help to sustain the project for, again, continued impact. And then finally, a compelling project includes a budget breakdown of how the award will be used. And so, you can be as detailed as you'd like, or just sort of share a summary of how your students are thinking about using the award if awarded. Just kind of sharing, some details of how this award can help them to scale or sustain their ideas. So in addition to, the application, we wanted to also share just some guidance of what is also part of your application process, which is a project portfolio, or you can also see this as a slide deck or a presentation, if you will. So this is just an example of a project portfolio in PDF format, and I'm just sharing a few screenshots. You can find this PDF template on cienachallenge.org under eligibility and submission requirements. And then under the submission requirements for the Ciena Solutions Challenge Gallery subsection, you'll find a little link, a little hyperlink where this template will lead you to. You can make a copy of this template and format it in any way that you like. But this template essentially just kind of shows you, what students should be, what information should be included in your students' project portfolios. So we should be able to know, their project name, their big idea, their essential question, where they're from. If you have several students working on a project in one team, we'd love to know who they are, so you can add their names. And then, just learning more about how they were engaged in the project. What did this challenge address? What type of methods were used to investigate their challenge, and what action they took or will be taking to tackle their local community challenge. Again, I just want to emphasize, you can copy this template and format it in any way. Students can format it in any way that they would like, but this is just some helpful information for you to help your students submit a compelling project. So in addition to, kind of what to include, I want to show you how to submit a project in our submission portfolio, in the submission portal. So I just wanted to share, the link that you'll need to access the submission portal. And so you can sign in if you haven't already registered. Go ahead and register as an educator at cienachallenge.org. You'll be led to the dashboard, and you can see on this screen, this is a screenshot of what your dashboard looks like. And then you can see sort of a blue banner with a little arrow that points to submit here. This is where you will be able to submit your student projects. Once you get to this screen, you will be able to submit your projects to the gallery first. And as you can see on this slide, I have multiple projects lined up to be submitted. So you'll want to ensure that if you have multiple projects to submit, that you are submitting each project individually to the gallery. Just as a heads up, you can submit as many projects as you'd like to the challenge. However, when you are ready to submit projects to be considered for the Sustainability Award, you are only allocated up to 5 projects to be considered for the award. So just wanted to make that note. But as you can see on this screen, this is just an example. If you have multiple projects, you'll likely see your projects kind of listed in this way. And then when you're ready to submit to the Sustainability Award, you'll be able to add your projects there. And I will share on my next slide how to submit an award application. So once you have all of your projects available in the gallery, you'll go to the Sustainability Award application. So this is just a preview of the application. And once you're in the application, you'll be asked a few questions. Some of them I named before in the previous slide, but essentially the questions that will show here, will ask you questions related to, a student reflection video. So this short 2-minute, less than 2-minute video should be able to synthesize your students' involvement with the Ciena Solutions Challenge and what was investigated, what was learned, and really just an overview of their actions. If you have students that are unable to create a video because they were on holiday or if they were out of school, educators can submit a video on your students' behalf. So just to let you know, this information is also listed on the application. So that's just a heads up. If your students are out of school or unable to submit a video, you may submit a video on their behalf, just kind of summarizing what they completed. A description of how the project demonstrates creative use of technology. We'll also ask you, to share a description of how your team will benefit from the $2,500 Sustainability Award. A description of any existing resources. Again, this could include key people, organizational structures, along with the creative use of existing tools and equipment. And so the submission review will consider how sites are planning for continued impact without additional funding or once additional funding ceases. So all of this information, again, is listed on the application. And then, of course, at the end, you'll also be asked to describe or share a budget breakdown of how the award will be able to scale or sustain your students' work. So I would encourage you as educators to kind of share this information with your students, talk with them about it as you get closer to the deadline, and just give them some room and space to really think thoughtfully about some of these questions and how they plan to respond. And just kind of a roundup of the application. Please remember, you can always save your project as a draft and you can come back to it later. Sometimes the application could feel a little maybe daunting in the beginning. So we really recommend that you start your applications early, even if you don't have all of your information yet. We recommend starting your application now, and you'll have an opportunity to come back to it later. And then remember, when you are ready to submit your projects or your application, please remember to hit submit. And you can submit it now. And if you want to edit it between now and March 1st, you have an opportunity to edit your projects. You will likely receive a confirmation email once your projects have been submitted to the portal. So you'll get that confirmation link to your email with just thank you and some additional information. So that is pretty much it around how to submit a project and what really, a compelling project sort of looks like. So again, feel free to start now. We encourage you getting a head start on your sustainability award applications. Again, the deadline is March the 1st. And if you have any questions on eligibility, submission requirements, or any just questions around how to submit a project, please email cienachallenge@digitalpromise.org with any questions. So if there aren't any questions related to this, if you do have any questions related to the project and you want to ask them now, please feel free to ask them in the chat box and I'll be able to respond to them at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to pass it over to Jess to talk a little bit about how to celebrate and reflect on your journeys with your students.
Awesome. Thank you, Carissa. Hi, y'all. My name is Jess Alanis, and I am so happy you're joining us in our last webinar. Ooh, where does time go? Who knows? But thank you so much for being here. We are truly grateful for your time. And we're just going to take a look at several ways you can celebrate and reflect the journey of your challenge designs. So we'll go over examples of galleries, using social media, and showcasing these type of celebrations at the Youth Made Festival. So let's get started with our first example. We wanted to share this example with y'all from educator Viviana Isabel Correa Andica and her student team in Colombia. Their project's essential question was, how can the young people of their community retrieve the stories, tales, and memories of their ancestors? So to give just a little background information of this project, the students of the Mbeda Chami community took charge of the specific challenge phases to address the risk of their ancestral knowledge not being transmitted to newer generations. Their solution was to create an educative blog to ensure the stories, the history, and the roots of their indigenous community is shared and learned by younger generations. And this is a picture of them, or two pictures of them up here on the screen. To showcase and celebrate their Ciena Solutions Challenge journey, they created a virtual exhibition featuring photos and videos throughout the design process of their community blog. So on the next slide, we'll take a look at their virtual photo gallery. So as you can see here, it's going to start showing a presentation of their virtual gallery, and they used the website eMaze to create this. eMaze is an online tool for making multimedia presentations. And as we go through this gallery, we can see that they displayed each of the steps they took to research and collect data for their community blog. And what I find most impactful from this gallery is just all the photos that show the people they interviewed, so their ancestors, the people of their community. They also talked about how they traveled to certain areas of the community to speak with elders. And I just love how it shows cultural traditions, such as the photo that you see, just food and recipes that they're trying to pass down from their ancestors. And as right here in this photo in particular, they show where they traveled to, where they're located. And this is just a beautiful way to involve the community even further in the process. as well as allow members to access and experience a photo gallery in a unique and engaging way that's accessible through online. So if you would like to view the entire virtual photo gallery, you can save the link in the chats. And we'll move on to the next example. So similar to what we just saw, Bibiana and her students created, you can also showcase and celebrate your project's journey with a gallery display. So gallery displays, they're also known as gallery walks. And if you ever want to kind of see gallery walks and what that looks like, you can also just look up a gallery walk and I'm sure you'll get tons of images. But they are normally set up as specific stations participants can visit. So in the example here that we have for you, each station has a designated person that presents what is being displayed. Gallery displays are often used by teachers to give their students an opportunity to present their work to classmates, to members of their school, or to their local community. So a gallery display can be set up anytime and anywhere that is best suited for the target audience. In most cases, they are set up in your classrooms or they're set up on your campus. And in this specific example on the screen, your student teams can lead a station that showcases what was done in each phase of the challenge. So you can have a group of students from your student team lead the engage station. And then folks will kind of go around in a circle and go to each station to learn more about what did the students do in the engage phase? What did the students do in the investigate phase? What did the students do in the act phase? And so on and so forth. So if you do decide to do this, this would be just a great example to invite community members either to campus, or you can actually just reach out to the community themselves and see if they would love to host a gallery display. And we're going to move on to our next example, using social media. So just another way to celebrate your Ciena Solutions challenge journey is by utilizing social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So these are platforms people normally already have and use. So the process should be a little smoother to set up. It just basically could be creating an account. And one example of this is by a student team from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and that's them there on the photo. They took action towards closing the learning gap that was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic by utilizing existing online platforms such as Instagram. So they actually created an Instagram initiative and they called themselves the Study Grammars. And Study Grammars, they created a hashtag that can be accessed by students and their community to view vital information. So creating a specific hashtag like they did would also allow another way that they can showcase and celebrate the stories they took in their challenge journey. And you can learn more about their initiative and see their whole hashtags and what they set up with the link in the chat. But if you do decide to do something like this, if you decide to make a hashtag, if you decide to showcase any of your work on any of these platforms, we would love to see them. So please tag us at Digital Promise or at Ciena and use the hashtag Ciena Challenge on Twitter. We definitely want to see your all's works and we definitely want to be able to share and have the opportunity to see how your community is being involved in social media. All right, now we're going to move on and talk about the Youth Made Festival. So the Ciena Solutions Challenge projects that we just went over, so the galleries and the social media, like the Study Grammars, they were actually in last year's Youth Made Festival. The Youth Made Festival is another opportunity to celebrate your project's journey. The global celebration is back again this year, from May 15th to the 28th. So if you're not familiar with this festival, or if you would just like a refresher, we're definitely gonna take a moment to learn how you can join in on this celebration. As we move forward to the next slide, let's learn about what is the Youth Made Festival. So this is a 2-week global celebration of youth creativity and innovation, also hosted by Digital Promise. And between the dates of May 15th through the 28th, you are invited to host and join events that showcase student-led work, specifically in making, activism, art, and design. So such as your Ciena Solutions Challenge projects. And so the purpose of this festival is to create an inclusive platform showcasing student work all over the world. So what exactly happens at the festival? And we'll take a look at that in the next slide. So the festival allows for events to take place in any form. So that means that they can be small virtual events, such as a Twitter chat, to larger in-person events such as like a district showcase or anything in between. The examples we mentioned were a great way to also bring events to the Youth Made. And just to think back, a great example would also be using social media or using your gallery walk. If you decide to do like a gallery display or gallery walk, that would also be something that you can host at the Youth Made Festival. So no matter the size or format, we highly encourage educators to engage students as presenters of their own work and co-designers of the event. So to best support you at the festival, Digital Promise promotes the events to our global community. And the event hosts are encouraged to attend other events to connect with like-minded students, educators, and advocates around the world. So let's look at other ways that Digital Promise can support your event. So how else does Digital Promise support? Our resources at Digital Promise includes materials to help you organize your virtual event, as well as materials to help promote and engage your local community to be involved. In addition, students who present their work will receive community service hours and a certificate of their participation. So if you want to learn more, or if you want to have some questions in mind, you want to attend a session on the next slide, we do have some upcoming orientations where you can learn more about this year's festival. We have two coming up in March 1st and March 8th, and we'll share those registration links in the chat. But you can also have access to the Youth Made website, which will also be in the chat, and to share all the other orientations we got going on the rest of March and April. So these orientations will be at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And if you have any questions about the Youth Made Festival, or you are wondering how you can receive more support from Digital Promise, you can contact Elise Gaynor at her email on the screen, and her email will also be in the chat for you. All right, so we're gonna go over some key resources now as you start to think about ways to celebrate your challenge journey, as well as reflecting on the work and the impact. We're gonna start off with our resource library. So the examples we just discussed earlier can be found on our resource library. The resource library contains activities and supporting resources for teachers and students at each phase of the challenge-based learning framework. You can also use the filters on the left side of the resource library to filter language, challenge phase, and activity type to most easily identify specific resources. And of course, the link for the resource library will also be in the chat. And specifically looking at the resource library, we're going to find the Challenge Builder. The Challenge Builder is a template for teams to use for planning before and during their challenges. So this board provides a guide through the phases of the challenge-based learning and a place to compile idea and resources. I do want to point out, and it might be a little difficult to see on the screen, but there will be a link to this Challenge Builder in the chat. If it's not fully readable, you can look at the PDF or the document. And this section on the right is for documenting and reflecting each phase, such as what happens during each phase, reactions, or even ideas for future investigations. We highly encourage you to continue using this document as you begin to think of ways how we're going to celebrate our journey. It's also a great method to kind of reflect and think about the continued impact of the journey. And here we have our project gallery. So on our website, you will also come across this online project gallery. You'll find all the 58 projects that Carissa mentioned at the beginning of the session. And we do encourage you to use this as a resource to inspire you and to inspire you and just get a view of all the other projects that were submitted last year. And as Carissa mentioned, you can submit as many projects created by your students, and up to 5 of those can be considered for the Sustainability Award. And we're gonna move on to our last resource. So we have our certificate of participation. So Digital Promise also provides this certification to your students for participating in the Ciena Solutions Challenge. And that's just to also show that they supported the Sustainable Development Goals. You are more than welcome to download and use this certificate as you see best fit. We would also, as we mentioned, we want to see y'all on social media if you do use social media, but if you do decide to download this template, we would love to see photos. So please go ahead and feel free to make a copy of this template, which will also be in the chat. and send over photos when you reach the step. You can find the link in the chat as well. If I think this is like a document link, but if you need to, you can just make a copy if you're not able to download it. All right, so we have made it to our self-reflection section. And I hope with the examples that we went over, you were to take some ideas and resources that'll help you with celebrating and reflecting your challenge journey. There was definitely a lot of information that I just shared. So I'm just gonna take a moment to allow y'all to pause and to think of these questions. Of course, as you're thinking of these questions, if other questions pop up, you're more than welcome to type them in the chat. But we will take a minute just to kind of sit here and think to ourselves, how can celebrating the challenge design journey center student voice? And how can your students continue to reflect the impact and story beyond the challenge design submission? You're also more than welcome to answer these questions in the chat as well.
While you're thinking or reflecting about, some of the resources that were named, or maybe you're thinking about some of your own celebrations that you planned on kind of hosting at your own school sites. I just wanted to also add that if you have any questions around project submission and how to submit a compelling project, you're welcome to also add that to the chat box at this moment. And if you are not ready to ask a question yet about that, you can always email us at cienachallenge.org, at digitalpromise.org.
All right, so we definitely encourage y'all to keep those reflective questions at the top of your mind. It's a lot to process. So for sure, just take your time, and while you're submitting your projects, keep those questions on top of your head, and try to think back of how can we celebrate the entire journey of your Ciena Solutions Challenge project. So we're gonna, just as a reminder, go back to just again getting started on your sustainability award application. And remember that the submission deadline is March 1st. So we highly recommend that you start with setting up a draft. The wonderful Carissa again mentioned that you can start off a draft. You don't have to submit just yet. So you're able to save it. And then when you're ready, you can go and submit. Always feel free, if you have any questions, if you have any wonderings, if you need any support, feel free to email any questions, as Carissa mentioned again, cienachallenge@digitalpromise.org. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Carissa, if there's anything else that you would like to add on.
Nothing else that I wanted to add. I just wanted to recognize Kristen with her comment in the chat box, just mentioning that this is a really intentional process with students, and it's important to model both the celebration of both success and failure. And I think that, just with how the challenge-based learning framework is set up, or in some cases you might refer to it as project-based learning, a lot of these styles of frameworks of learning is definitely showing and sharing with students that, this process is iterative. So even the project that they submit in March could potentially change in April or even after that. So, we hope that with the comments and feedback that you are, or your student teams will receive at the end of the challenge, that they kind of take that and use it to even just increase or improve on their ideas, because they have so many. And I'm sure that with the challenges that are submitted, students might feel compelled to say, hey, I want to do this differently, or we have these questions, and these community organizations can help in this way. So we hope that this sort of process just adds on to what you're already doing with students in your classrooms every day. So we're really excited to see all the projects that are submitted, and if you have any colleagues or just anyone that you know that is doing work like this, feel free to share this with them. It doesn't matter where they are in the process. They could have just been starting on a project, or maybe this project is, kind of inching onto a unit that they're getting into. They can submit a blueprint, a prototype, just an idea. We want to see it all. So as long as it's leveraging technology in some way and isn't student driven, we're open to anything that is submitted. So please share this opportunity, and we can't wait to see all of the innovation that is submitted by your students. So if that is all, we are looking forward to seeing your projects on March the 1st. And again, any questions, please email cienachallenge@digitalpromise.org, and we'll be sure to get back to you really soon. Thanks, everybody.